And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. It is a Tuesday afternoon, and we're a day after the news that Springbok captain Kolisi at this stage is looking more likely than not to miss the Rugby World Cup, um, which is, basically a disaster, an absolute disaster for the team, for the spectacle, for the greater rugby public, to be honest. It's far more than just a case of the Springboks losing their captain. As I said, we're talking about a product of the World Cup, and they've just lost one of the biggest players that are going to the World Cup. In terms of a name, in terms of a profile, of presence, and the entire World Cup spectacle will be so much poorer uh, if Sierra does not make it. And look, at this stage, no decisions has been officially made. For example, so right now it is all speculation, but as I said, it is pretty much confirmed that it's more likely he doesn't make it than he does make it, unfortunately. So yeah, it's quite hectic because we're sitting in a day later, and the questions are now obviously sort of popping up. Who captains the side? Who goes as the Springbok captain? Who replaces him in the team, for example, in the squad? And we all sit there and we kind of hope that this conversation becomes all theoretical and that he does see a specialist which can find a non-surgical route to take and he can recover in time for the World Cup. But the fact that Rachel Kolisi did post on the Instagram basically saying that they're praying for a miracle shows you that he will need a miracle to be able to get to the World Cup. And it's just it's pretty heartbreaking as it on so many different levels because first of all he's playing tremendous rugby, absolutely tremendous rugby. He's really found himself in the last sort of 3-4 years. He's always been a fantastic player, but the level of which he's been playing at recently has been it's been amazing to watch, to be honest. To see somebody who has had to go through everything, basically. He's had to go through injury issues, he's had to go through, doubt over his form, doubt over his place in the team, and he's gone through all of that. He's come up with flying colours, and in fact, as I said, probably playing some of the best rugby he's ever played, and some of the best rugby we've seen from a South African in the last few years. Won the Player of the Year in 2021, was nominated once again last year for the performances that he was putting in, and just recently he's just taken his game to a different level. He's been putting in performance after performance, and we're gonna miss him incredibly as a player first and foremost, but then as a captain. There's probably no more inspirational captain in world rugby right now than Kolisi. He is an absolute credit to the team and everything you sort of want in a captain. He's incredibly humble. He's very well spoken. Says all the right things, and just is always. He's for me. The way he just behaves. If you've ever been in around any sort of situation where Kolisi is around there, it's incredible. From every single press conference he is going and greeting every single journalist individually, going and asking them how they are, for example. He's got a tremendous sort of personal touch about him. And then, as I said, then the biggest thing is that he's a tremendous player. And so we're going to miss him so much from a figurehead point of view, from a captain and a player. And it's difficult to sort of see how we can appropriately fill that sort of gap that he is going to leave in the side. So it's not looking good. It's a sad time, and if he were not to go, it would be one of the greatest travesties in world rugby if he doesn't get to go and try and defend the World Cup, which he did so brilliantly to win as part of that tie back in 2019. But the next sort of big question is what does it mean for the team, and how does the team cope without him? And it's going to be a very interesting couple of months ahead in terms of what the Springbok management do to try and fill the Kolisi gap. And there's a couple of big questions to be made. First of all, from a squad perspective, who sort of starts moving into his position and into a spot, for example, who might they take ahead of him or instead of him, rather. And then the question is comes to the leadership. Now, at the moment, Andre Pollard is the vice captain. So, in theory, as it stands, Andre Pollard would be the natural replacement. But that might not be the case. They could actually name somebody else who, as captain, even keeping Andre Pollard, I suppose, as vice captain. But I suppose you kind of then sort of wonder, well, what's the point of having him as captain if he's not going to, having him as vice captain if he doesn't then sort of step in when needed to. So it's going to be very interesting to see exactly what the situation is, but also how they approach it, and do they come out and say, and I suppose we'll have more information. If there's a small chance that he can make it, do they hold out on him? Do they sit there saying, right, well, Andre Pollard's going to captain the Rugby Championship, for example, and, we are really hoping that come August, Kolisi is available once again. He takes over the captaincy, moving into the World Cup, and we're happy with life. We're chuffed as bunny. That's what ideally we'd like to see. But if that's not going to be the case, you also don't want to be sitting here in August or in beginning of September going into the World Cup with any sort of doubt. So we've got to be pretty clever and intelligent with how we negotiate the next few months with regards to leadership, with regards to the willingness players, how's it all going to work. You're also now having to decide who plays in a stead, and do you go and try and find a like-for-like replacement? Do we go and play the same person in the number 6 jersey for the next 4 or 5 games? Or is it a case of we kind of need to experiment and see who's the best starter, who's best off the bench, for example? So that's also a big sort of thing, is the fact that, well, he's not going to play during the Rugby Championship, and how do we fill that gap? And again, do we experiment, or do we just sort of commit to somebody and say, right, you've now got 4 matches to really understand, knuckle down that role as the starting number 6? That's what we need you to go out and do. So it's the last thing the Springbok manager would have liked, and any injury is a difficult one to contend with. But losing your captain, losing one of your best players, it's even more so. And we're also sitting there waiting to find out exactly what's going to happen with Etzebeth, who is currently injured. Is not expecting. There's no worry about him at this stage, missing the World Cup, but because he was just kind of out for a couple of weeks. But he also is currently injured, should be back for the Rugby Championship. But has come out and said that he is hoping to be ready for the Rugby Championship, which is July. So hopefully, at least him getting him back a bit earlier than what we thought we would see him will be quite good, so we can make sure he's fully fit. But now, as I said, this is another very interesting time and a very stressful time of a World Cup year, and it's almost a kind of time where people almost get quite relieved when they see. So, for example, if the Stormers and the Sharks were to get knocked out of the URC, a lot of people would actually be sighing, a big sigh of relief, because they were sitting there saying, well, at least, there are fewer games where the possibility of injuries can occur. But injuries are always part of a World Cup. That is at the end of the day. Even last World Cup, Kolisi was touch and go, coming back from injury, didn't have a lot of game time. So injuries are always a massive part of a World Cup in terms of who gets injured when and how it sort of all can unfold. And you can sometimes get 0 injuries, and then your first World Cup game, 2 or 3 players go down. All of a sudden, you're flying players in. Your Trevor Nkanda went down for the Boks last World Cup. So you can never. It's always there's far too many variables to be able to plan. But I don't think it could have been a bigger blow to the side than losing Kolisi. I genuinely think if you had to sort of rank the people that you would absolutely hate to lose, I think he'd come out on top as somebody that is the last person you want to be able to lose. Going to some of the comments, Michelle Levin saying it's devastating. Sia must be absolutely gutted. Grant saying this could be motivation for the team to win it for Sia, bring him up to lift the trophy after the final whistle. I agree 100%. Aside from his playing ability, he's a brilliant human and such a role model for all. He deserves all our respect and gratitude, 100%. Bertie says, it's a huge loss for the Bokke. Number 6 is flank and a captain. This might galvanise them, though. I'm sure he'll be there in a supportive role to help the boys. Grant saying, I don't like kicking 10 to also be captain. Too many things they already have to worry about. Brian saying, Etzebeth is going in for shoulder surgery, so he's doubtful as well. Sapper's dropping like flies. Grant saying the most likely replacements will be Dion Free or Marcus Starden. I think one of those two all of a sudden could come into the squad. you obviously got Kwaka Smith, who's sort of the incumbent off the bench at the moment, sort of been playing in and out of that role. But it's not looking good for the Boks because, as I said, it's a bit that's hoping to be fit for July. But for example, Samuel Murat is apparently out until August. So I think that pretty much takes him out the running. And I think he was someone who was on the potential radar. Archie Snyman is, made his return, played some brilliant rugby against Stormers, then got concussion. So concussion shouldn't, he shouldn't be out for much longer. He'd probably be available to play potentially this, in the URC in the quarterfinals, hopefully in next weekend. But again, you sit there thinking, well, game time, is he going to make it and stuff? So quite a few sort of injury question marks. France Dane's another one. With a couple of question marks regarding his fitness, whether he'll be able to play, whether he'll be in form, whether he'll have opportunity to, get him into a position to be ready to play. And it's going to be a very stressful few months ahead. Now that we've kind of gotten over the stress of the fact that Jacques Nialba will be moving on, we now have to deal with the stress of potential injuries and how the squad and the team might have to change over the next couple of months before the September kickoff. So it's not fun. Not fun times to be a Springbok sport. It's not fun to be any sport of any nation, really, because I said every single time somebody goes down or somebody stays down after a tackle, you sit there going, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. And it kind of takes out a little bit of the enjoyment. But yeah, I think personally, I've kind of come to terms with the fact I just don't see it happening. The fact that apparently there's a partial tear in his ACL and he's done his meniscus on either side, it does sound very. There's a lot going on there, and meniscus injury, for example, is something which is very difficult to get right. I can't speak from experience, actually. To be honest, it took me 3 years to sort out mine. But for example, something like Ansu Fati, Barcelona youngster, he had a meniscus issue, which was supposed to be a sort of a 6-week recovery, and he ended up being out for the entire season. So it's something that can relapse quite often. It's something that's quite difficult to get right. And so they can try go a non-surgical route, but again, there's no guarantee that it will work. And also, sometimes if you don't go if you don't go a surgical route, the broader issue might still be there as underlying, and all of a sudden you go into the World Cup or into a match, and you can aggravate and you kind of set yourself back and all that. You remember Jean de Villiers and how hard he worked to get to the World Cup, only for him to do his knee once again. So yeah, it's going to be a very, very stressful few months and a very heartbreaking few months. And I suppose maybe it's almost kinda, I suppose, in a way, where if they sit there saying you gotta have surgery, you're out, and you can kind of come to terms with it, and you can sit there saying, right, well, I won't be there. Or at least I won't be playing. A lot of people are talking about the fact that they'd love to see him go in a different capacity, maybe part of the coach staff or just as a, for most sport. It's a difficult thing to get right because you kind of have to be there in some sort of role. You can't just sort of take players for fun. So, but yeah, and because and you just know that, I mean, he will do anything. So if there is a non-surgical route that has a genuine chance of getting him onto the field, he'll do it. And he'll work relentlessly to get himself back on the field. We know this. So there's no doubt about the fact that if there's a small chance, if there's a 2% chance, if there's a 1% chance of him making it to the World Cup, he will do absolutely everything in his power to get there. But the worry then becomes is that, you put all of that effort and then you're injured again. So the big question that people keep asking is, can South Africa win the World Cup? That's kind of a poll running, and the question is, how big of a loss is he? And I'll tell you what, I don't think people also understand the gravity of how important he is to the side. And what's phenomenal is how am I still seeing people out there talking about the fact that he's not in form and shouldn't be going? Like, do you just not watch Springbok rugby? I don't understand that. People who are questioning whether, well, somebody literally said, well, the Sharks have been playing badly, so he didn't deserve to go on form. If you're going to go based on that, you wouldn't be taking the 12 Springboks that the Sharks currently have. That means no Mapimpi, no Lekanya no Bungi Manambi, no Oxen Chair. You wouldn't be taking Evan Etzebeth, apparently. You wouldn't be taking Thomas Atoy. You wouldn't be taking Jaden Henderson or Grant Williams if you're sitting there saying the Sharks playing badly, therefore none of them deserve to go. So yeah, apparently if we're not taking Sharks players, we might need to see an entire brand new squad come July, which should be, I suppose, interesting if nothing else. Yes, I don't think we need to be that sort of extreme. It does blow my mind that there are still people sitting there saying, "Oh well, you shouldn't be playing." Like what have you watched in the last couple of years? I think everybody, absolutely everybody. Well, I thought everybody had come to terms with the fact that he is he is the player that we all thought he might become. He's with him and Ibn Etzebeth, I think have been our two best players in the last couple of years, and the Kanya last year was also some terrific form. So yes. But again, this is all very speculation. So I'm very interested to see when we will see an announcement, whether it will be and how that announcement comes. Is it going to be something quite hush hush where they're going to sort of talk about maybe he's having treatment, they might not, come out and make the announcement, or will they come out and say very categorically, right, he's out for the World Cup? That's the reality, but this is how he's still going to be involved or whatever, or is he still going to be involved? Grant saying Stormers to comfortably win the SA Conference, only to be knocked out in the first knockout game will be a return to normal for us long-suffering Stormers fans. Michelle saying Sia can't play, will be our water boy in place of Rusty. If they can get that right, it would be quite a cool way for him to still be involved. I think it will be something quite difficult to get right. But you never know. So the question is, what sort of players could get involved? I think it would be Deon Fourie. I think is somebody who's come through. But again, I mean, we talk about Deon Fourie's going to play. Deon Fourie's currently injured, and we also don't really understand the nature of his injury, because they come out and said in 12th of April that he's going to be out for a while. So he was also potentially out for 6 to 8 weeks. Thankfully, I think it was his nose. So it's not like it's a bone or something like that. So it should recover pretty well. But he's not going to play rugby again this season until maybe the Boks are back. So 6 to 8 weeks from April is him coming back in June. So he's not going to have any opportunity really to play Currie Cup either as well. So it's becoming a very difficult sort of situation where, you're going to want some certain Springboks to be able to come back and play a bit of Currie Cup rugby. Others, you don't really want them to come play in case they get injured again. So the nice thing, I suppose, at least, is that the Currie Cup is there. So when Deon Fourie does come, if he can come back, the Currie Cup's up until the end of June. So when he does come back, you at least can give him some minutes. If Etzebeth miraculously recovers in time, you can go say, well, go have a 20-minute outing with the Sharks, for example, and you can get yourself some minutes there. So at least there is that sort of silver lining. Everybody hates the Currie Cup, but if nothing else, that could be the only thing that could be really positive there. It could give us an opportunity to get some game time into some players that need it. But that's probably not the only real sort of silver lining, isn't it? I do think Kwaka Smith at the moment will be the natural replacement. He has been so good off the bench, but in terms of work rate, in terms of fetching, in terms of a skill set, somebody who gets around, is very good at the breakdown. Yeah, for me, he is the natural replacement. The question is then who comes off the bench as an impact player. Now, if you're going a 6-2 split, you could be, for example, Dwayne Vermeulen starting at edge, you'll have Jasper Wiese, and then you could have a Marco starting or a Deon Fourie within that 6-2 split as well as a lock. Franco Mostert also obviously giving you that sort of versatility. So, you could be starting Etzebeth and Franco Mostert, and off the bench you could have Lourdes Diallo coming off, Marco van Staden or a Deon Fourie and a Jasper Wiese, and that's quite a nice little bomb squad. And you then have a loose trio of a Pieter Toys, Kwaka Smith and Dwayne Vermeulen. So we do have replacement. Look, the nice thing is the only sort of silver lining is that if there's one sort of aspect of the side, if there's one position we can afford to lose, South Africa have always just had a plethora of loose forwards. We're not even mentioning the likes of, an Evan Roos, an Albert Lowe, who can also play in various positions. We haven't even mentioned those sort of players because chances are they're not going to be involved in the squad, but they've been playing really good rugby. So there are lots and lots of options for the Boks when it comes to the loose chair. So it is a position where we can, I don't want to say you can afford to lose, because you can't really afford to lose somebody of Kolisi's caliber. But it is somewhere where we do have decent depth. Cameron said it could be an ACL tear if it is out of the World Cup. The injury list is adding up for the Boks, which is concerning. I think they will send a somewhat B team to play in the Rugby Championship. Maybe, I think I'll be interested to see what we do in the Rugby Championship. I don't think it'll be a B team, because you kind of also, this is your last opportunity really to sort of gel and put your final touches on. So I don't think we'll see too much rotation. We might potentially see a bit of rotation with one of the trips, like to Argentina, for example. That could be an opportunity for them to sort of put game time into players who they had question marks about, who haven't played a lot. I see us being full strength for that Wallabies test. I see us being full strength for the both New Zealand tests, and pretty full strength for that Welsh test as well, which are all warm-up games. Because we've also got quite a few World Cup games to play before the playoffs. We're playing Tonga, Samoa, Romania, Scotland, and Ireland. So there's 5 games before we even get a quarterfinal. So we do need to be able to sort of utilize our entire squad, all 33 players of it. So I think there will have to be a certain amount of rotation during the Rugby Championship, but also we've also remembered that we lost that year back in 2020. So we do need to make sure we make any sort of time we have out there playing against other teams count. Because if we don't, well, then we're going to be in a little bit of trouble. But it's I suppose the only thing is it's quite exciting because we're now moving into Springbok time, aren't we? Yes, we're still many months away, July, so we're still 3 months away from the first Springbok game. But as we move into May, sort of June, and the club season starts to wind down, we get closer to, for example, a Springbok squad announcement for the Rugby Championship. We start getting closer to when the Springbok World Cup squad is going to be announced and stuff. So any update on Cheslin Colby? Yeah, again, he's somebody also who hopefully should be able to play again this season. But he's also someone, for me, I'm a bit worried about he keeps having ankle injuries. And you don't know if it's the same one or if it's different ones every time, but he's had a lot of injury issues post the World Cup. And that's kind of what's, that people are saying that they barely see him in the top 14 in the last couple of years, which is true because he hasn't played a lot. So there's a lot of worries about them. And thankfully, somebody like Andre Partouch has seemed to have come over his injury issues and playing some very good rugby. So that's been a very big positive. Jasper Wiese is playing very well. Evan Lewis has come back. I think that injury of his has probably ruled him out of the World Cup because I don't think he's going to have enough opportunity for him to really sort of stake a claim to get into that squad. So it's amazing how injuries will take away a lot of players from their opportunity to win the World Cup. But I suppose it also opens the door for other players who have the opportunity to take their take the opportunity and try and get themselves in the mix. Jaden Hendricks is somebody else who's injured as well, who I think was with our top 3 scrum halves. Grant Williams potentially could be the man that could be snatching that opportunity. We're still talking about our second choice 10, for example, and Mani Libbok was sort of always the obvious candidate, and played pretty well at the end of the season. Not sure if they will do that though. Johan Persson was being touted as an option, and he's only just come back. Didn't play terribly on the weekend, but hasn't played a lot of rugby. Alton Yankees, after all the sort of scandal stuff like that, also, that's why he moved to the Pro D2 because they said to him, well, basically, if you want to play, if you want to make it to the World Cup, you need to go and play. You need to go and play and get minutes on his belt. And he has gone to the Pro D2. He has played 9 games. So at least he's got close to 500 minutes under his belt. Not playing badly either. So it'll be interesting to see is he an option? Is he still the option? Is he still the number 2 choice for the box? And how much will we then see people changing things during the Rugby Championship? Is Andre Partouch just going to play every single game for the Springboks? I'm going to sit there hoping he doesn't get injured. Or will we see Mani Libbok given an opportunity? Will we see Damian Willemse at 10 again? Will we see Alton Yankees being called up again to see if he can still do a job at 10? Will we see Villaroo maybe having a go at 10? Will they try a Johan Persson and take a risk on him? So there are lots of injury issues with the Springboks. But we're still quite a while away. We're still in April. So if it's a minor injury, get your minor injury now. So if it's 3 or 4 weeks, cool, fine, take them into mid-May. Get them back at the end of the May. You've got the full June for sort of training and stuff like that, and the Bok camp should be starting pretty soon after the club season comes to an end. So expect them to get into camp in around June, and first game is the 8th of July against the Wallabies. So yeah, I do think it's going to be but we've got to sit here and wait and see what's going to happen with our various injuries and stuff like that in terms of what squads we'll see. Maybe saying into 2, LB said the good thing we have a lot of depth in SA. Azariak said, do you think people like Noche, Buthelezi, Chutuka will now get consideration because of the current situation? Well, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I understand, Vincent Chutuka still doesn't have a South African passport and remains ineligible. I think Sukumoza Noche could be on the cards. He has played for the Boks in the last couple of years. Thought he's very good for the SAA as well. So Cameron says, considering all the injuries, do you think SA players are playing too much rugby, and with them playing the URC, the players are being poached by those teams that are having a negative impact on SA rugby? I don't think so. I don't. It's easy with sometimes you have that bad injury sort of streak and stuff like that. I think injuries. I mean, it's not everybody who's injured, for example, is guilty of playing time. For example, like Dion Puri, he's fractures eye socket and done his nose. That's not a playing condition. That's not a playing time injury. Kolisi's knee injury. There's no at this stage no reason to believe that they're playing too much rugby. So there is a whole player welfare thing in terms of how much they are allowed to play and how much they're not allowed to play. We have far less control over those playing minutes, sort of overseas in the Premiership and stuff like that. I mean, for example, Jasper Wiese is playing a lot of minutes, which is a little bit concerning. Within South Africa, we have a lot more control about it, and we can kind of sort of decide. Well, we can ask them unions to rotate and to give them time off and stuff like that. And we did see them being pulled out earlier this year. So I don't think it's a case of them playing too much rugby. It's muscle injuries, for example, can be a case of fatigue, but things like sprained ankles or knees and stuff like that, often those are collision based or incident based. JP saying, surely Wilson is too little too late. At least Marnie went on tour last year. I would feel it's too short time to be in the system, 100%. I was saying we need massive recruitment and have 2 teams for the comps like Leinster does. 12 plus minus 12 weeks before the squad announcement. Yeah, I reckon we'll see a squad announcement probably after the URC final potentially, which is scheduled for Saturday, the 27th of May. So that first sort of week of June, I'm sure we'll see an announcement then, if not before. Michelle saying, one thing is for sure, we don't have a lack of talent. Agree. Grant saying, this is a worryingly long list of injuries. Maybe these guys are playing too much rugby. I wonder if Dandrup would get a shot instead of Esterhazen as a second 12, but doubt they'll go that route. No, I don't think they'll go that route as well. I don't think we'll see Dandrup see. I think it's a bit, Esterhazen will be part of the squad. I personally think you're probably looking at Damien Willemse as your second option at 12. Before Esterhazen, to be perfectly honest. And again, if Dandy does not play, you Willemse at 12 means you can keep Willie at 15, which is what they really want to do. Yeah, I'm interested to see. I thought Esterhazen could have had more opportunities last year, but I also didn't think he played as well as you would have liked him to have played when he did play. So maybe sort of an argument to say he didn't really take his opportunities when they were presented to him. But yeah, I'm going to end the poll. And the good news is everybody's still feeling very optimistic. 87%, well, 86% there are the people are saying that we can win the World Cup this year. I do believe we can. I'm not sure whether we will, but yeah, I think a lot of it does come to how we deal with the next few months and make sure that we go into the World Cup fit and firing, because that's also the next thing. It's one thing, when players are coming back from injury, it's about match fitness. It's about how fit can they be? Are they in playing condition? Are they in their best? Are they in their peak of their powers, or are they carrying a bit of fatigue from? Because sometimes I tell you what, coming back from an injury is not an easy process. So it's quite a tiring, mentally tough thing. So to be able to come out of an injury and then also really get yourself into the right frame of mind is not easy at all. So it's quite a difficult one for players to start to get over. But those are the challenges we have to overcome if we want to go win the World Cup and defend our titles. So we'll just have to wait and see how things go. People, please do smash like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steven. I'll chat to you.